Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Neil McLaughlin, aka Virtual Mac. I'm a 5-year Microsoft MVP and also co-author of Mastering Azure Virtual Desktop 2nd edition. On this channel you find the latest news about Azure Virtual Desktop, Windows 365, Intune, Nerdio and much more. In today's video we're going to talk about Entra AD Join versus Active Directory Join. Okay, we're going to decide whether you want to do that for your AVD session host or whether you want to do that for your Windows 365 session host. We'll go into the pros and cons of each method and help you decide which one's best for you. If that's the type of content you're after, then keep on watching. All right, let's get going. So let's start by looking at the 3 different types of domain join that we can do today. Historically, we've done Active Directory Join. So AD Join is where you have domain controllers in your environment and we join the session host to Active Directory, right? This has been the most common scenario probably for the past 5 years, and it continues to be a very common scenario. We'll go into the plus and minuses soon of each one. I just want to do a quick overview of what the different options are. So option 1, Active Directory Join. Option 2, we've got Entra AD Join. So Entra AD Join is where we don't have any domain controllers, we don't have Active Directory, we are joining our session host straight to ID. Again, we'll go into the plus and minuses of each session soon. Now we also have a third option, which is a combination of both. We call that hybrid join. A hybrid join is where you join your host to Active Directory, so your session host is domain join, but we also register the host against Entra ID in Intune. Note the word register, not join. We're still joined to Active Directory, but our session hosts are actually registered or available within Entra ID, plus also within Intune. Okay, so you get the best of both worlds. This is what I'm recommending most customers to do, unless they can get away with doing Entra AD Join. So let's cover all that stuff next. Right, what I'm going to do is walk through each one by one, and then we'll describe the pros and cons of each one. First of all, let's look at Active Directory. Active Directory has been around for a while, fully supported. All your legacy applications, we know they work. The downside is you have a dependency on Active Directory, and basically that means that you would need to deploy Active Directory domain controllers inside your Azure environment and need to manage those. You also may need to hook up your site, your on-prem site as well, because there needs to be a connectivity there to the existing domain. So you're limiting yourself in quite a few different scenarios. Now obviously if you've got applications which require Kerberos authentication, then you're stuck, right? So Kerberos has been around for a while, and that's normally the number one reason why people tend to stick to Active Directory or hybrid join, because they have those legacy applications, right? Once you've got rid of all those legacy applications and you don't need Kerberos anymore, then you can go and start exploring Entra AD Join. So next we're going to look at the management piece. With Active Directory Join, I will basically be using group policies and also probably SCCM or config manager to manage our environments. That's the legacy way. When we move over to Entra AD Join, we lose group policies, we lose SCCM/config manager, right? Unless you do a hybrid scenario. Your management point is going to be Intune. That's how you're going to manage those devices when you're going over to Entra AD Join or hybrid join. Some people are okay with that. Other people miss GPOs because Intune, I'd say, isn't as flexible as group policies were. It's definitely on par from a feature perspective from the group policies. Historically it wasn't, it was a bit of a challenge. The biggest issues people face obviously is the time it takes to apply those policies, especially in multi-session environments. But yeah, if you're going to do Entra AD Join or hybrid join, then my suggestion is get comfortable with Intune, because that's the way forward. That's the way Microsoft is going. If you're stuck on GPOs, then you need to be thinking about, okay, I need to move off GPOs. And that's what hybrid join gives you, because it gives you the ability to join my session host to Active Directory. I can start to explore the whole Intune piece. If you haven't started on that journey yet, I would highly advise you to start doing it as soon as possible. Next thing is network connectivity. If you don't have your networks in place, as in if you're doing Active Directory Join, then you're going to need to make sure you've got connectivity back to your on-prem environment from whatever site your session hosts are in, okay, from within Azure. So make sure those connections are in back into your on-prem environment. If you're doing Entra AD Join, you don't really need that network connectivity because you're just joining the service. So as long as you can hit the internet, you're good to go. Whereas with Active Directory Join, you need a physical network connection back to your on-prem environment where the controllers are sitting. The next one is probably the biggest piece, which is modern auth. So what do I want to say about modern auth? So Microsoft is putting a lot of effort into authentication. We have things like single sign-on, we have a lot of stuff like conditional access. All those efforts are going into Entra ID. They're not going into Active Directory. So Active Directory is there today just to be fed in waters. Eventually, you want to be moving off Active Directory. To take advantage of all the latest security features, I would highly suggest, if you're security conscious, try and get to Azure AD Join, because it's where things are going to go in the future. It's the more secure method. Active Directory can be hacked. Active Directory password resets can be done easily. Hackers can get into Active Directory database and pull out credentials a lot easier than they can do with Entra ID. So if security is top of mind, then definitely we want to be going with AD Join. The next one is FSLogix. FSLogix still has a huge dependency on Active Directory from a profile management perspective and also from a app masking perspective. So if you do need to use FS app masking, you are stuck with Active Directory. There are alternative workarounds available for Entra AD Join for FSLogix, but preferably you should be domain joining your session host if you want to do FSLogix. Microsoft are releasing full support for Entra AD Join and FSLogix, hopefully within the next quarter, hopefully towards the later end of the year. So that won't be a problem. But if you are using FSLogix heavily, then you're probably going to find that you need to be using either Active Directory Join or Hybrid Join. And then the last one, probably the biggest one, the reason why we're all still on Active Directory, and that's around legacy application support. And what do we mean by that? Legacy application support is where we have a application which needs Kerberos authentication, right? So they're all legacy applications using Kerberos authentication to either log on to the application or do some kind of authentication to some database or something. That's probably the biggest sticking point that we see. Now, in this scenario, that's where we want to go down the hybrid join, right? Because we definitely want to still have those legacy applications supported, but we also want to take advantage of all the new features around kind of Intune. Okay, so yeah, that's just a quick summary about the pluses and minuses of each one and the kind of things that you need to be thinking about. I'd say if you can, try to get to Entra AD Join. If you can't, then hybrid join is a great middle ground, okay? Because it enables you to start kicking the stars with Intune. It enables you to start looking at all that single sign-on modern authentication piece. Definitely try to get to Entra ID if you can, but if you can't, hybrid join is the way to go. If you're still stuck on pure legacy, as in Active Directory Join, you need to be thinking about hybrid join, right? Because Active Directory is going to go away eventually, and we need to start thinking about modern ways of management. All right, so there's the pros and cons of each. I hope that's been useful. What we're going to do now is we're actually going to go and dig in and see what the differences are from an actual hands-on point of view, right? How do we configure this? What are the differences? So we'll go into the Azure portal, we'll go to the Nerdio portal. I'll show you how to configure the group policies, because the way we do hybrid join is we still do Active Directory Join, but there's a group policy setting that we implement, and that group policy setting tells the host to register against Entra ID on Intune as well. So we're going to drop into the Azure portal. Then I'm going to show you where you configure AD Join versus Entra AD Join. This is Azure portal. I've just gone into the Add Virtual Machine to Host screen to show you what this looks like. Okay, so basically you got two options. You either got Active Directory or you've got Entra ID. Okay, so you notice I mentioned three things: Active Directory, Entra ID, and hybrid join. To do the hybrid join, we need to join to Active Directory and then implement a group policy setting, which I'll show you, and then it registers against Entra ID. Okay, so for this screen, we can just either do Active Directory or we can do Entra ID only, and then we've got Enroll VM with Intune as well, which normally we want to select yes. Okay, so if you wanted to do AD join, we basically need to put the domain that we're going to join, and then also a service account or a domain account that has the credentials to perform the domain join. So I'd put an account in here, and then we can specify a OU and a domain that we want to join as well. That's where we configure that within the native console. I'll show you how we approach that from a Nerdio perspective. The way we approach it from a Nerdio perspective is we have this thing called profiles. Okay, so you can see here I've got a profile for Entra ID and also a profile for Active Directory. If I click on my profile for Entra ID, similar screen to what you just saw within the native Azure portal, this is a directory which I'm going to join to enroll with Intune as well. If I wanted to do AD domain join, I just create a profile and put the details within here. You can see I've got my OU that I want to join as well. What we then do is apply the profile to the host pool. Within the native portal, you have to specify that every time. The way we do that within Nerdio is we basically just have the profile on the directory, and then every new session host that joins or is created picks up that profile. If I was doing a domain join, which I'll take you this one here, for example, I've just got this one here, which is the domain join. And then if I wanted to do a hybrid join, I'd just put the group policy setting on this OU, which I'll show you shortly. So that's how you do Entra ID join versus hybrid join, Entra ID join from a physical perspective. All right, so now we've done that, let's go and have a look and see what the differences are from an Active Directory point of view and also from an Entra ID point of view. I'll show you what the logon experience is. First of all, this is logging onto a straight Entra ID join machine. The benefit that you get of a straight Entra ID join machine is this is not configured for it, but you could potentially get single sign-on capability where I wouldn't actually need to put in any credentials. So I'm just going to log into this one here. Okay, so that's me logged in to the host. Don't have any group policies to apply, so the login process is a lot quicker. You're just using the Intune policies that have been applied onto the machine. There's no group policies are waiting to be applied on that VM. All right, so we're here in the system. We'll go to domain or work group. I'm in a work group. I'm not actually joined to the domain because I'm just registered against Entra ID. So if you want to see whether your host is joined to Active Directory, Entra ID via the command line, we can actually run this command here. It's called dsregcmd/status. So this tells me Azure AD joined, Enterprise joined, no, domain joined, no, virtual desktop not set. So that's how I know this is joined to Entra ID. So what we'll do, we'll go and just compare that against the domain joined one and see what that says. So the domain joined one we're about to go and check is actually hybrid joins. Okay, so I'll show you what those records look like within Entra ID as well. So let's have a look at this one as well. So if I go to my host name, so you can see this is ETEVC demo. You can guess what that was for. Let's go back to the portal and have a look at that object within my environment. So if I go to my devices, you can see here this is my device sitting with Entra ID, and I won't have a device record for that within Active Directory. Okay, and then again, if we hop over to the Intune screen, you can see here I've got ETEVC demo, and that's my device in Intune, and that's where I managed it from within the Intune console. Okay, all right, so let's now go and compare that to an Active Directory machine. All right, so let's log on to the Active Directory machine. I'm going to click that connect button. So the first thing you notice is the domain's different, right? Previously I was logging on using my Entra ID credentials. Here I'm actually going to log on using my domain credentials, okay? Because we're authenticating against Active Directory. Okay, so that's me logging onto the machine. The logon is going to be a bit slower because you've got the group policy settings to apply. So I'm now logged onto the machine. So this is dsregcmd/status. You can see here Azure AD joined, yes. I'll show you how that's happened. Enterprise joined, no. Domain joined, yes. So this is a member of the domain, plus it's also a member of Azure AD. That's important to know because it means that we're joined to both. This is what I meant about the dual management. If I go to settings, we'll be able to see that the machine is actually joined to our Active Directory. System, about, domain and workgroup. And you can see here the domain is virtualman.local. Okay, so let's now go and explore this hybrid join, because this is hybrid joined. It's joined to Active Directory, but we also go look in our Entra ID and we'll be able to see it as well. So let's just do that now. Go to hostname. So inside the MUI 8031. Okay, so we just hop over to here. And if I go into my Entra ID, go to devices, to Intune, you can see there. So the device is also registered within Intune, but if we go to Entra ID, we'll also see it within there as well. So let me just go to all devices, type the device in here. Nope, yep. So we can see the device, this one down here. Just to be clear, we've got the device in 3 locations: Active Directory, Intune, and Entra ID. That enables us to manage by group policy, but it also enables us to manage it via Entra ID as well. So really useful to do. You can see here, join type, Microsoft Entra ID, hybrid joint. Okay. All right. So now let's go and have a look and see how we actually get to that. Okay. All right. So I'm in my group policy console. This is the setting which you want to apply. Okay. So if you want to do hybrid join, you basically need to join the host directory, and it's this setting here. You can find this setting underneath policies, administrative templates, Windows components, then go to MDM, and then enable automatic MDM enrollment using default Azure AD credentials. Okay. If you go into here, and then just the important thing here, we need to set this to device credential. Yeah. The MDM application ID needs to be blank. Device credential or user credential. The difference is with user credential, it only does it when the user logs on, which we don't want because we want the session host to do it without users logging onto them. So we set the device credential, and that joins the session host to the Entra ID, and then we'll also register it against Intune and roll the device to MDM. Okay. So that's where we configure it. Make sure that's in place, and then everything should be good to go. Then once the domain join happens, your devices should pop up within Intune and also Entra ID as well. Okay. So a quick tip for you: if you're ever wondering why or how the devices pop up within Intune, you can actually go onto the session host and have a look in the schedule tasks. You should see the schedule task for enterprise management, and it's this one here. Schedule created by enrollment client, and it's this command here, device enroll.exe/o and that GUID/c, and this is what actually registered this host against Intune. Okay, so if you are ever struggling, or if you're ever wondering why the device isn't popping up within Intune, the first place to look is here, and then have a look through your log files as well. If you want to see where the device is actually registering against Entra ID, you go to this one here. This is workplace join. Register computer. If it's already joined to Active Directory domain, which it is, it will do a dspread cmd, which will register this host against Intune. So, against Entra ID. So yeah, if you ever troubleshooting that, just come in here and have a look and see what's actually happening, and then you'll see it within here as well. Okay. All right. So there you have it. There are your 3 options. So just to summarize, you can either register your host against Active Directory and not have any Intune/Entra ID. Definitely do not recommend that option. You can have your host join to Entra ID only. Most people struggle with that because they don't have like FSLogix, for example, and they miss Kerberos for their application. But if you can get there, that's a very good place to be. That's the modern way of management. So if you don't have any of the limitations that we've talked about in this video, there are workarounds for the FSLogix. So if it's just a application thing, then maybe explore those workarounds. I've got another video which I'll put a link into here. And then also we have, probably to me, is the best of both worlds, where we have our Active Directory join machines, and we also are able to manage those via Entra ID/Intune. As I mentioned, the Nirvana, if you can get there, is just straight Entra ID join, because then we don't have to worry about domain controllers and stuff. If you can't get there, and there are a lot of companies who can't get there just yet, then this new hybrid join is definitely a good middle ground, because I still get my Active Directory like group policies and stuff, but I can still explore the new modern management ways of doing things around Intune and that kind of stuff as well. Hope you have enjoyed this video. If you have, please click the like and subscribe button. It really helps me grow the channel, helps me get good feedback as well, so it's really useful if you could do that for me. Alright, that's it for this week. If you've got any content ideas, or if anything you want to hear about, please just drop it in the comments. Also, tell me what you're doing. Are you doing hybrid join? Are you doing Azure AD Join? Tell me what your experience is like. Alright, thank you very much, and I will see you next week. Bye bye.